Cyber Uncut. Discover the changing face of business, government and national security as Australia navigates the cyber revolution.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You are listening to the Cyber Uncut podcast. Thank you for tuning in. My name is David Hollingworth. I am the Deputy Editor of Cyber Daily, and I'm joined by my indefatigable colleague. I've managed to get that word out in one go. Daniel Croft, welcome to the pod. How you doing?
Good. We had the relaunch of FST last night.
What a week it's been for events.
Yeah, the week before we had our Cyber Summit and Awards, which was terrific, as it always is.
I would say probably one of our best yet. I mean, we probably say that every year, but every year we do manage to make it better and better, I think.
It was. We had ex-FBI's
Scott Augenbaum.
Yeah, that's right. I'm glad you pronounced the last name.
What a larger-than-life guy.
He was fantastic. He actually messaged me on LinkedIn today about his book. So I was chatting to him today. He was fantastic. And one of the things I feel like we, in the kind of way that we do cybersecurity, is that he talks about this being a people problem rather than a technology problem. And his opener was literally, why are we spending money on technology for what is not a technology problem? It was just fantastic. And, you know, I think we get a unique perspective into that in what we do, because it is just about people.
It's people who are the victims, it's people who are committing the crime, and in between, there's some technology involved.
Yeah, and the technology largely isn't that sophisticated. So But really, really fantastic talk.
What was amusing was he's a very interactive speaker. And he came hard up against the average Australian audience's lack of response to callback. Because he's like, what is your answer? And the audience is just quiet. He'd be like, well, I hope you're feeling uncomfortable. I like it.
Yeah.
Except you and I were laughing a lot. He came down afterwards and just thought we were the two members of the crowd who were really responding to what he was saying. And he was a bit disappointed to learn that we work here. But no, we appreciate what you're saying.
There was a point where I shouted something out and he said, it's okay. You don't need to save me from the uncomfortable silence. I'm enjoying it up here.
But I think one of the through lines, and he kept repeating this, and it bears repeating once again, is that what happens when you're a victim of one of these crimes, you know, a ransomware incident or a similar kind of thing, is your data's gone, you're not getting it back, no one's getting arrested.
Yeah.
It's just, that's how it is.
That is just how it goes.
Yeah, so how do you then surmount that problem of dealing with it? And as he says, it's all down to people. Educating your people about what other people are likely to do to your company. So he was great. The awards were marvellous.
The awards are always a really, really fun time. You know, it's all just drinks,
even though
fantastic food.
There was a slightly grievous injury on the evening.
Yes, you did.
I can't remember which one of our partners during the summit, they had a stand and they were giving away merch, as is often
it was
the
cool
case.
Merch.
It was a combination bottle opener and potato peeler.
I have several in my house now.
Can I recommend you never leave them in your bag? Ask me how I know.
Yeah, well, they were very good potato peelers because they peeled the entirety of your finger pretty
much. Yes. I stored one in my bag for later, then forgot about it, dove back into my bag to grab something. There was a lot of blood.
There was.
A lot of blood.
If you were at the awards, you would have seen David take to the stage for the Excellence Award with a giant cartoonish white bandage on his finger.
I know. Mark Humphreys even made fun of me for it. He bullied me over after injuring myself. I was very, very embarrassed by that. It was the cartoonishly large white bandage.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's enough about the awards. Oh, and the FST Media launched last night, which was a lot of fun. On to the news. So, as always, going to kick off with AI, because boy, do we have some big cybersecurity news that broke today and has been breaking for the last week or so. Yeah. But let's kick off with the US Federal Reserve has outlined AI's influence on the finance sector. I mean, we've been hearing a lot of nerves from the finance sector, especially in relation to finding vulnerabilities at scale. So what is the current issue here with the Fed?
So, so the Federal Reserve has kind of outlined what AI is doing in the finance sector, how it's being quickly adopted, and the kind of concerns that raises, but also the benefits. Anthropic mythos is mentioned as well.
As it will be for a while, I imagine.
As it will be, yeah. So speaking at the Financial Stability Oversight Council Artificial Intelligence Series Roundtable on Cybersecurity and Risk Management in Washington, D.C. Holy crap. Vice Chair for Supervision, Michelle W. Bowman, said AI will be a transformative technology for the financial sector. no surprises there, really. You know, you see these technologies. It was the same with the internet. The finance sector, as I've said a number of times now, is a quick adopter of technology. So she said, AI has become an integrated part of our daily experience. Financial institutions are developing their own applications and implementing vendor-assisted tools. Banks of all sizes benefit from its greater efficiency, speed, and content generation. Whether used in target modeling or enterprise-wide tools, AI will become a force multiplier for the financial system and in the broader US economy. Now, this all sounds fantastic. We know that our AI giants, Anthropic and OpenAI, are investing heavily in this. I wrote for another publication yesterday for FST that Anthropic has actually launched 10 new kind of agentic AI templates for the purposes of the banking sector and the finance sector. Well, OpenAI, I wrote about, they announced this earlier this month, has partnered with PwC to kind of bring agentic AI tools into the CFO office to change that executive kind of leadership in the finance sector and be like, let's use these tools to automate workflows and do things like that. You know, not only are financial institutions looking at this, but these big AI giants want that too. OpenAI has already been using it in their own finance business. So now, this all sounds fantastic, as I said, but Bowman mentioned that AI has a dynamic nature and models like Anthropic's Mythos, risks and benefits are likely to result. You know, we're going to get the good with the bad. So she said the improved ability to identify cyber vulnerabilities comes with the potential to address these weaknesses to enhance cybersecurity. And of course, we've already seen that AI has the potential to improve efficiency and effectiveness, particularly with the financial system. So this is mostly a warning, I think, and she also discusses the kind of role that the Federal Reserve supervisors are playing, which is largely about understanding the technology, how it's being implemented, working with the private sector and saying, hey, you know, you're doing all this, this, and this, and this.
She points out something interesting here, and I think it's an interesting question to ask. To mitigate and manage risk, we must understand the specifics regarding the use case for its deployment. Will it be used for material tasks? Is it broadly accessible to employees or limited? And does its use directly affect consumers and customers, as with credit determinations? Like these are big, important questions to work out. The role of AI in your organization, particularly when you're a bank.
One thing I actually love that she mentioned as well, before we move on, is that she also wants to talk about this on a global standard. Now, we've spoken about cybersecurity having no geographical borders constantly.
Neither does finance.
And neither does AI. So she wants to ensure that, this technology is going to kind of meet regulations globally and is going to impact those financial institutions around the world equally. We know that these institutions trade internationally frequently, you know. We know our banks as well, CBA, all the big four are investing heavily in AI. We've covered CBA a lot, but
for better and for worse.
Exactly, But NAB, ANZ, St George, Westpac, they're all doing it, and these are all institutions that will operate internationally as well. So this is really, really, really quite a good read. I would highly recommend not only reading my lovely article, but to read the Federal Reserve release. There is a lot in there that is definitely worth reading.
And it's interesting that we kick off on that. The reason I switched those articles around was that I think it leads better into what I want to talk about, and that is Proofpoint's 2026 AI and Human Risk Landscape Report, because this isn't just the financial sector, but obviously the financial sector is a part of this. Organisations across Australia and the world are obviously ramping up their investment and deployment of AI, whether it be assistant chatbots, whether it be agentic AI, what have you. It's happening fast. But it's happening almost too fast because no one's really assessing the risks of this technology as they're rolling it out. And this is Adrian Kovic, Vice President System Engineering for Proofpoint in the APJ region. This is what he had to say, and then I'll move on to some stats. We're already seeing Australian organisations grappling with the threats faced by AI and particularly agentic adoption. Kovic said the recent release of sensitive New South Wales government agency information via ChatGPT, we're back to doing that again, was a perfect example of the kind of risk organisations face. Australian orgs are scaling AI quickly with huge potential for productivity gains. However, this unpreparedness carries real consequences. Without a significant change in the security posture of AI systems, these kinds of breaches are likely to become more commonplace. So 4 out of 5 Australian orgs have deployed AI assistance beyond a pilot stage, so 80%. However, only 60% are confident that their security controls would catch a compromise in one of those AI systems. And that kind of figure seems to be pretty indicative of where everyone's journey is. We're this far along in our AI adoption journey. We're only this far along in securing that AI. This report polled 1,400 security professionals across 12 countries, including Australia. And it found some other interesting data points as well. Email remains the most common attack vector in Australia. However, SaaS and cloud applications are catching up, with AI assistance coming up third.
Yeah.
And I expect as this AI adoption accelerates and continues to roll out, that will slide up and up and up.
This is actually quite interesting because, as alarming as these stats are, to put in context, Australia, in terms of their AI adoption, has actually been pretty good, according to another report I read by PwC. So they said that Australia is actually lacking comparatively in the revenue-making space thanks to AI. What they are doing is secure implementation.
Yeah.
Which is a really, really good thing to hear for us. That's fantastic. And even then, we're seeing these kind of statistics where AI-related incidents are 44% are reporting AI-related incidents.
Despite having, what they say, adequate security controls.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
So that really kind of puts into perspective how big a threat this is.
51% of orgs reported visibility gaps into agent activity, and issues were also reported in relation to training and governance across multiple teams.
Yeah.
So you end up with an AI platform rolled out across multiple teams in your org. They're all going to be using it inconsistently. And if you don't know how those individuals are using that AI, or even if they're bringing their own AI, the whole shadow AI problem is massive. So where, you chat to a lot of people in the cybersecurity industry and they'll say, oh yeah, we've been using AI for decades now. And this is true. It's been around for a while. It's just that we're having what DigiCert's boss, when I spoke to him a couple of weeks back, called the ChatGPT moment, where everything just accelerates behind one platform. But at the moment, the security side of things is just way, way, way behind.
It's one of those things where people don't quite understand just how. I mean, I'm sure a lot of our listeners do, but I think a lot of people in business don't understand that it's kind of like a double-edged sword where both edges are bad. Not only are you, introducing a technology that can be gamed, threat actors are able to use it to, launch incidents against your business, but by adding that technology, you're also expanding the kind of threat landscape. So you're taking off your armor and handing the guys an extra sword.
That's a good way to put it. Before we go to a break, I'll leave the last word with Kovac, because I think he just sums up it up quite wonderfully here. The answer isn't to treat AI as a novel threat category, but to apply rigorous, proven controls as to what AI touches, what it runs, and what it's allowed to authenticate as. Organizations that get that foundation right early will scale AI confidently. Those that don't are just automating their own exposure. That last sentence is just...
I love that.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Yeah. It's excellent. That's super cool.
So for anybody listening, any CISO, anybody involved in the rollout of AI in their company or organization, slow down, have a think about it.
Yeah.
Measure twice, cut once. I think it'd be about best.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
We're going to take a short break and we'll be back with crimes.
Boy,
have there been crimes.
There have been so many that we're not even going to talk about.
It'd be impossible. We'd be here all week. Back soon. Welcome back to the Cyber Uncut podcast. It's the cybercrime part of it. And today, I'm not even talking the rest of the week.
Yeah.
Today, we're talking about our old friends at Shiny Hunters. They are on a continuing tear, compromising third-party platforms and every company that uses them, or organization, or in this case, school. Last week, Shiny Hunters listed a company called Instructure. Instructure is they run a cloud educational platform called Canvas. Canvas is used by schools all over the world. And Shiny Hunters are claiming to have compromised more than 200 million individuals, students and staff alike, from thousands of educational...
9,000 institutions worldwide, apparently.
Exactly. And it looks like they've hit Australia pretty damn hard, because this morning, the Queensland Education Minister admitted that pretty much every public school in the state has been compromised by this incident.
That's insane.
It is insane. And And that's the tip of the iceberg. But here's what John Paul Langbroke, I believe, actually, had to say today. This morning, I've been briefed by the Department of Education that an international cybersecurity breach involving a third-party provider, Instructure, which delivers the department's online learning platform, QLearn. This incident has impacted thousands of institutions, including state schools and universities within Queensland, across Australia and overseas. And early advice is this will impact more than 200 million people and more than 9,000 worldwide. Pretty much all staff and students of Education Queensland schools since 2020, when their platform was brought online, have been impacted. That's it. If you're enrolled today, and that's 500,000 students, more than in Queensland, have had names, addresses where they go to school, at the very least, compromised like that. And Queensland is not alone. Tasmania Department of Education is looking into it as well. The New South Wales Department of Education, I reached out to them today, and they are also having a look into this. What did they tell me? In fact, they've been telling a few media outlets this. The department is aware of the publicly reported data breach affecting Instructure's Canvas platform. A department spokesperson said the department is working with Instructure to establish if any New South Wales schools have been impacted and the nature of any data involved. And they went on to say schools using departmental sign-on do not have their passwords stored with Canvas. There is no risk of credential exposure in those cases. But I'd say that's small beer compared to just how much student data could be compromised here.
Yeah. And, just a reminder, this is the data of children. You know, these are public schools. These are kids. And that data it's got some real motivation for compliance with these threat actors when you have data like that. If you're going for something like ransomware, there's not much more that will convince you more to pay money than the data of your children or children in general.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an absolute hot button issue. Lieutenant General Michelle McGuinness, the country's national cybersecurity coordinator, she's across this and working with stakeholders. She said today we're in the early stages of assessing the impacts, and I will share further updates as we gain a better understanding of the incident. If you think you may be impacted by this breach, the best way you can protect yourself is to not respond to unsolicited contact. Because that's the thing. Once this data's out there, it's a treasure trove for scammers or anybody who wants to use that to impersonate schools, for instance. You can imagine someone impersonating a school, having all the data belonging to a student, reaching out to a parent to try and then get further data and compromise them in a scam or some form of fraud.
That cat's out of the bag, I think.
Absolutely, so all around the country right now, pretty much every Department of Education is looking into just how badly they've been burned by this. And boy, is it yet another reminder that your perimeter of risk does not end at the edge of your network.
No.
It extends to every third party that you are involved with. In this case, it's a third party in another country running this global platform, and you think, they must be secure. No. And it appears to be, once again, they've been compromised via a Salesforce instance.
Yeah, well, that's Shiny Hunter's, go-to. That is very much their kind of, calling card. So Cash Sharma, MD for ANZ at cybersecurity firm Blue Voyant, said to us today, these incidents underscore a growing reality. Education systems are no longer defending only their own networks, but also the expanding ecosystem of external vendors, platforms, and service providers connected to them. When I published this story on Mastodon, someone I follow actually made a really interesting comment, said that their kids' school required us to give permission to provide PII to more than 24 external vendors for various bits of software and services they use. I'm just surprised it didn't happen sooner. So many schools now have an online education portal of some kind, and all of that data is just sitting there. I think I read in fact, I think I wrote an article about it most recently. A lot of schools now have applications. And the minute you turn on that application, it starts tracking where you are and what you're doing. Yeah.
If your kid has this application on their phone, they're being tracked like that as well. So all the data that's being collected around school kids, often without them knowing, is just, it's a disaster waiting to happen.
That's terrible, actually.
It really, really is, isn't it? We laugh at it because the only other option really is to cry at it. But Sharma went on to say, effective third-party risk management requires continuous oversight across the full vendor lifecycle. Now, we're not saying, this is me, we're not saying that's easy, but it's essential, absolutely essential. From due diligence and onboarding through to ongoing monitoring, auditing, and incident response. Schools and education departments must move beyond static assessments and establish continuous visibility into vendor activity, security controls, and emerging threats. Without this shift, the rapid digitization of education will continue to outpace the sector's ability to secure it. I want to go back to us talking about AI earlier. It's moving so fast on the usability, on the data collection, on how that data is used, but the security side of it is clearly lagging far behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, this is going to be a developing story, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to be hearing about this probably for the coming week, if not longer. We'll continue to cover it as more stuff comes to light. But Shiny Hunters has been busy outside of the education sector.
Yeah.
They've also gone after a rental giant, haven't they?
Well, yeah, Cushman and Wakefield. It's a big...
I've never heard of them.
Well, they're international. I think they're US-based, but they have locations in Sydney, Brisbane, Adelaide, Canberra, Perth, and Melbourne, and multiple in some of those. So I believe Parramatta, for example, is another one of their locations. They confirmed that they had suffered a limited vishing attack, a voice phishing attack.
Which has Shiny Hunters written all over it. I mean, that's what they love to do. Yeah.
This is an interesting one. And it appears, this was a social engineering attack on a staff member. Now, the Register originally covered this, so shout out to them. But a representative from Cushman and Wakefield said that it had recently become aware of a limited data security incident due to vishing. We have activated our response protocols, including taking steps to contain the unauthorized activity and engaging third-party expert advisors to support a comprehensive response. Our systems and operations continue to run normally, and we are working diligently to investigate the incident. We recognize the trust placed in us to protect sensitive data, and we take this responsibility very seriously. Now, that's all boilerplate stuff. We see that in most hacks. The interesting thing here, and this is something we don't see often, we have seen before, is that cyber attack was claimed by not only Shiny Hunters, but Quillen.
Right. Yeah.
And now Quillen is probably the head honcho, or at least one of them at the moment. They have something like nearly 1,800 victims since they appeared in 2022.
They don't have the highest number overall, because I think that goes to people like Clop and Lockbit.
Yeah.
But Clop is a case all of its own.
Yeah.
Clop is a master of third-party file transfer compromise.
Yeah.
So they're often listed as a ransomware actor. They're not. They're a cyber extortionist, absolutely.
Yeah.
Then you've got Lockbit, which is a shadow of its former self and was the ransomware platform.
It really was, but they're gone. They're pretty much done.
Yeah.
So Shiny Hunters claimed this first, on the 1st of May. And they actually provided quite a bit of info. They said that they stole 500,000 Salesforce records, very Shiny Hunters.
Yep.
That included internal corporate data and PII. And then when I saw the listing, they actually were doing a final warning message.
Yep.
This is a final warning to reach out by certain date. Before we leak, along with several annoying digital problems that'll come your way. Make the right decision. Don't be the next headline. They are bullies, those guys.
They really are, but also I feel bad because we're the ones writing the headlines. So
yes.
They're really talking.
Yeah. Well, that's what they count on, right?
Yeah.
So 3 days later, just a couple of days ago, 4th of May, Quillen claimed responsibility. Now, unlike Quillen usually will provide a little bit of info on it.
Because the thing about Quillen is they're a ransomware as a service operation, so it all depends on just how informative the given affiliate wants to be.
Exactly.
You could go to one of their leak posts and it has document scans, evidence, further details, or it could just go, we saw some data.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
This says nothing.
Yeah.
There's a link to Cushman and Wakefield's site. I think I keep saying Wakeman. But Cushman and Wakefield. I haven't written that wrong anywhere, have I? I don't think so.
Is now the time to check?
No, I haven't. They have a link to Cushman and Wakefield.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
They haven't said how much data they stole.
Yeah.
They haven't said when the allegedly stolen data will be posted. They haven't provided a data sample.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
What have Cushman and Wakefield have to say?
Nothing yet.
Nothing yet?
Well, besides the statement that I was talking about before.
Yeah.
they've issued a standard statement. I reached out to them just saying, hey, can you provide a little bit more info, particularly on this dual attribution?
Yeah, gotcha.
And I was sent that statement.
That statement, gotcha.
So, understandably, that's not something I want to discuss. They've organised this statement as part of their response, as they should. They're doing the right thing. Nothing against them there. But, again, we still don't even have any proof that either group has actually done anything. But, if we're placing bets,
look,
Shiny Hunters looks pretty legit right now.
I would say very legit. Going back to the schools hack, they've already published a list of every school impacted. I'm downloading that as we speak. It's not a small document.
I will have to look at, schools I used to go to. Did they make the list?
Yeah, look, maybe, oh God, there's another list you're on.
But anyone who hasn't heard the context of that sounds real
It's okay,
rough.
you're fine. Yeah, everything's cool. And look, that's just the tip of the cybercrime iceberg here in Australia just in the last week, let alone the last fortnight, because it's been a fortnight since you and I last sat down here.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to go through some of the stuff we've covered. The Australian Cybersecurity Centre is warning of a clicks fix campaign leveraging Australian WordPress sites to deliver an info stealer. The Department of Education in Queensland, we just covered that one.
Oodles and oodles and oodles.
Australian energy management platform.
Energy Action.
Energy Action, listed by SafePay. Let's keep going through here. Cushman Wakefield, ALS, they're a global scientific testing company, and they do have offices here in Australia, but all around the world. But they disclosed to the Australian Stock Exchange that they were the victim of a cyber incident, so they've been hit.
Gregory Jewelers. They are, you might have even seen a Gregory Jewelers. There's quite a few of them in shopping centres.
Yeah.
Pretty big brand. They were hit by, if I can remember who, Kairos.
Yep.
There's another one. There's a couple. There's two at the moment that I'm looking at.
And Champion Homes got hit by Dragonforce.
Yeah. I remember thinking at the beginning of the year, wow, it's slowed down a bit.
It did feel that way, but
and now
I'm
they're
not feeling that anymore.
It's constant.
And that is just going back to the 5th of May, Tuesday this week. Just having a brief overlook.
Yep.
But before we move on, and we have a special interview coming up after the next break, but before we move on, we've got an update on a story we didn't even get to talk about on the pod.
No.
But it's already been updated, and that is the New South Wales Treasury cyber incident, which is more of an insider threat, wasn't it?
It's a bit of a weird one. So
walk us through it.
21st of April, New South Wales government announced that a New South Wales Treasury staff member was involved in a cyber incident impacting the agency. Mm-hmm. And this involved data transfer to an outside party.
Yep.
I don't have the exact number here. Oh, no, here we go. 5,600 sensitive documents from multiple departments were allegedly accessed by this staffer.
Yeah.
So they launched an investigation. They declared the incident significant, I believe was the term they used. But now, they've arrested a 45-year-old New South Wales Treasury official from Homebush West, seized devices, blah, 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 blah. But now, as the investigation's gone on, they've lowered that classification so it's no longer significant. The incident's now been contained, according to New South Wales Chief Cybersecurity Officer Marie Patan.
Yep.
And they're in the recovery phase.
Yeah.
They've also implemented appropriate remediation measures, and legal reviews are still ongoing, but everything's under
obviously
control.
there is a case here. We don't even know anything about what this guy was planning on doing with the data he was walking out of the building.
He's still not. I think he's been charged with allegedly doing this.
Mm-hmm.
He'll probably face. I think he's facing court at the beginning of June.
Yep.
From memory, but as far as beyond that, it's quite tight-lipped. We don't know too much. The New South Wales Police says that they believe all of the allegedly stolen data has been located and is secure, and that there is no external compromise.
I'm just curious to know, again, I want to know what was going through his mind, what he was thinking, what the motivation was. Pissed off staffer?
Maybe some money.
Maybe money. Yeah,
driven.
that's going to be interesting. We don't know the nature of the data. We don't know why he was doing it, just that it happened. Yeah. But it's no longer a significant event, so yay, I guess?
Yay, yeah. Let's go with yay.
Let's go with yay, yeah. But yeah, What a week, Lemon.
And I suspect next week will be equally busy.
Yeah, it does sound that way. Anyway, we are going to take a pause, take a deep breath, and we'll be back after a short break. Welcome back to Cyber Uncut. I'm David, he's Dan, and now we're going to have another Dan with us briefly. So, yes. With all of this, with all of our own events, we kind of forgot that there was a major cybersecurity event in the United States recently, the RSA Conference. Now, Cyber Daily was lucky enough to be a media partner with Austrade, which is the Australian Trade and Investment Commission, for the event. They sent a delegation along with their investment director who operates out of the Australian Embassy in Washington. And we tried to wrangle to get one of us there, but with our own event, all of that just wasn't quite possible. But thankfully, their director, Daniel Marks, said he would step in, and he interviewed a few people who were there as part of the Australian delegation and who were present there. And so today, we have his chat. He got to sit down. Well, actually, he sat down, but he got to sit down.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We're journalists.
We
know
do
English.
words. We do words.
Good.
So he got to sit down and have a chat with Rob Allen, who is Chief Product Officer at ThreatLocker. I got to see him chat earlier this year when I was in Orlando for their big cybersecurity conference, and he's a bit of a character. So I'm going to hand over to Dan now. He recorded this last month for us. Enjoy.
Good afternoon. I'm Dan Marks, Investment Director and Cybersecurity Lead for Austrade Americas. Our guest today has spent over 25 years in the trenches of IT and cybersecurity, moving from systems admin to Chief Product Officer at ThreatLocker. He's a leading voice for the deny by default philosophy and a regular on stages at RSA, HIMSS and others. So joining us to talk about why security is a journey, not a product, and perhaps his love for Bucky's brisket is please welcome Rob Allen.
Thank you. Good to be here, Dan.
Yeah, no. How's your RSA going so far?
Fantastically. Yeah, it's really good. It's my third one now, and it's great to see the growth in the company and the relationships since the first one. So the first one, I would have met a handful of customers, you know what I mean, maybe 10 customers over the course of the few days. Yeah. Now it's 10 times that. People coming up saying hello, even people I don't know coming up and saying hello and introducing themselves. So yeah, it's great to see. It's a brilliant opportunity just to meet people, shake hands, kiss babies, that kind of thing.
Kiss babies. Well, I see ThreatLocker staff everywhere, and your company's growing fast. Tell us a little bit about the growth over the past year or so.
Well, I'll go back a little bit further if that's okay. So I joined in 2021, February 21, in the height of COVID. And at that point, there was nobody outside of the US, or one or two maybe, but there was no organization outside of the US. And in the US, I think there was 27 people at that stage. At the moment, I think it's over 700, pushing 750. We've got most of those in Orlando and Florida. We've got quite a number in Dublin, Ireland. We've got an office, or at least I hope we still have an office in Dubai. And we have a newly opened office in Brisbane.
Why Brisbane?
That's a really good question, and I'm not entirely sure. I wasn't part of the decision-making process. We do have, as I'm sure we'll get on to, a lot of customers in Australia, and I know we've got some quite large ones in the Brisbane area. Right. But it wasn't a decision that I was involved in. 25 years ago, I lived in Melbourne for 6 months. I absolutely loved the place. Yeah. So had it been up to me, I would have said Melbourne for no other reason than I loved Melbourne. But no, Brisbane was the location chosen.
Yeah. So why don't you inform our listeners a little bit about ThreatLocker as a company, what you do, what you consider to be a sort of secret source?
Sure. So ThreatLocker operates on a slightly different, or comes at the problem of cybersecurity from a slightly different angle to, call them traditional tools, which is 95% of what's on the market today. And most of those tools operate on the principle of trust but verify. So allow everything to run unless we know it to be bad, or allow everything to happen unless we know it to be bad, in which case they will hopefully detect those things as being bad and then respond to them. So it's fundamentally, it's reactionary. It's based on the principle that you can detect all of the bad things, that you can know everything that's bad. And fundamentally, as the years go by, it's becoming more and more apparent that you cannot know everything that's bad. Nobody knows everything that's bad. So that suggests that a different approach is needed, because that approach, it's not that it's not effective, it's that it's not effective all the time. And it's no good being right 99.9% of the time, because it's the 0.01% of the time that will cause a breach or a ransomware incident. So as I said, we come at the problem from a slightly different approach, which is rather than trying to identify everything that's bad or know everything that's bad, we say, why don't you deny by default?
So it's the inverse.
It's a total 180 from that traditional approach. It's rather than allowing everything to run in your environment, why don't you just allow what's required to run in your environment? And it's a really simple concept, but there's so much power behind it. There's so much, it just makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Because the reality is that in most environments, most users do the same things with the same software every single day. And fundamentally what we do is we set guardrails around that, and we say, look, you operate within these guardrails and you're never even going to know we're here. Now you step outside of those guardrails and try and install, random remote access tool or, a coupon clipper from X company or X country, then absolutely we're going to step in and stop that. But again, most users never even encounter us because they do the same things with the same software every day. Yeah. I'm a pretty advanced user. I can count on the fingers of probably two hands, pushing two hands, the numbers of different programs I use on a daily basis. Yeah. So it's like Office, Teams, Zoom, browsers, Hyper-V. Yeah. There's not much more than that.
So it's not then disruptive for your customers to just suddenly about face and change their posture?
No, absolutely not. And in a lot of ways, it's freeing. So from an IT department's perspective, having a control, having limits on what users can do is incredibly useful, because it means that users are not going to do, even aside from the cybersecurity benefits, users are just not going to be able to do the silly things that users tend to do that get themselves in trouble. So this goes back to my pre-ThreatLocker days when I was just an IT guy, fixing people's computers basically. And I know the pain of, I give somebody a new computer today and it's all singing, all dancing, and it's everything they need, and they ring me in 6 months and they go, my computer's running slowly. And then I'd log in and they've got 15 different Chrome extensions and 4 different toolbars and 3 different antiviruses somewhere installed, and expecting me to clean it up for them. So with what we do with Deny by Default, all of that goes away. So it's literally just allow people to use the things they need to use and no more.
Yeah, I know it makes perfect sense. It's kind of an obvious starting point.
It makes perfect sense. The issue historically has been it's not that easy. It's really easy to block things. Blocking things is not a problem. Anybody can write a driver or write a piece of software that'll block everything, but the problem is you're going to block people from doing what they need to be able to do. Yeah. You're going to stop Windows from working. You're basically going to break your machine. So the secret sauce, as you mentioned in what we do, is about allowing those things which are required without involving the user in any way or requiring the user to be involved in any way. So that's kind of the secret sauce.
Okay. If you think about application control, and the Essential 8 is our gold standard now for Australian businesses, but many find maturity level 3 application control nearly impossible to maintain. How does ThreatLocker automate the sort of management of these rules?
Sure. There's a couple of different parts to it. The first is in terms of how we onboard, which is fundamentally just deploy an agent onto your machines. It then learns what's on your machine. It figures out what you need, and it'll create a set of policies for every user depending on what's on their machine and what they run on their machine. So that's the first heavy lift that we sort of take out of the equation, which is I don't need to figure out everything that Dan needs to run on his machine. We're going to see everything Dan is running on his machine, and we're going to create policies to allow those things. The other way that we make life easier and make it attainable is that we have this concept of what we call built-in applications or ThreatLocker managed applications, because the biggest problem with this approach historically has been the question of what happens when software updates. So what happens when Acrobat updates? What happens when Chrome updates? Right. And generally speaking, what will happen is those things will stop working because your allow listing will go, look, I know that is called acrobat.exe, but it doesn't match my acrobat.exe, so I'm not going to let it run. Yeah. So the way we solve that problem is we have this concept of built-in applications or ThreatLocker managed applications, which are application definitions that we manage, we maintain, and we keep up to date. So if a new update comes out for Acrobat, we've got an applications team, 120 strong, working 24/7, 365, downloading, installing, cataloging applications, adding hashes where necessary, and they got pushed out to customers who have policies for those applications automatically. So you don't need to do anything to allow Acrobat, a new version, to run on your machine, because we've done all of the heavy lifting in the back end.
That's good. So no more allow requests.
Occasionally you will, but it's when users need to run something new. You don't want to have an allow request for when somebody was using Acrobat yesterday and they try and use Acrobat today and suddenly it's blocked. That all goes away. But if a user requires a new piece of software, that they can request something, and it's a really smooth, really clean, really easy approval process, gets blocked, requested, evaluated by the administrator, approved. Within 60 seconds, that thing can run.
What about the contrast between government and sort of the private sector? Two very different customers.
The problem is universal, though.
Yeah.
The problem is pretty much the same. I mean, obviously, government are going to want more control relative to what a average, small business might want. But the problem is fundamentally the same, which is rogue code, unknown software, things being misused, 0 days, vulnerabilities. I mean, the problems are universal. And again, the solution, because it's such a simple one, is effectively the same, which is just block everything, and you're going to block those road code and unknown vulnerabilities and applications. I mean, the way to think about it is every piece of software that you allow to run on your computer increases your attack surface. Now, in most environments, that means every piece of software in the world, because that's everything that can run, because most people don't deny by default. So everything that you run on your machine increases your attack surface, but equally, everything that you don't run or don't allow to run in your environment reduces your attack surface, and that's fundamentally what we're all about.
Yeah. The questions yesterday were largely around data sovereignty. Perhaps I just ought to ask your views in general on sovereignty and the direction of travel there.
Well, it's something obviously we're aware of. I mean, obviously you mentioned the essential age in terms of legislation. There are obviously restrictions in various countries. So, I mean, for example, we've got infrastructure in Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia doesn't allow any data to be transferred outside of Saudi Arabia. We've got the same in UAE. We've got infrastructure, physical infrastructure in Australia as well. So it is, as you said, it's the direction of travel that countries want to keep their information within their borders, and that's something, obviously, as a provider, we have to facilitate.
Good for business, bad for innovation, or how are you seeing it?
From our perspective, it doesn't really matter. There isn't. I mean, it's not. Fundamentally, the data that we're collecting is things that are relevant to an organization, and fundamentally not really to anyone else. So it's logs, it's what's running on your machine, it's reads, writes, copies, moves, that kind of stuff. But again, the fact that we keep all that data in Australia for Australian customers, it's not a problem, it's not an issue, it's not a difficulty for us. And apart from anything else, it gives our Australian customers a better service, because they're going to an Australian data center rather than having to come to an American data center to do what they need to do.
Yeah. No, I thought there was some interesting points raised by our panelists yesterday on sovereignty. Some dissenters on the panel next to the hyperscalers made for an interesting interesting discussion. You've spoken, though, about the surge in AI-driven ransomware, and in the context of the Australian threat landscape, how's your ring-fencing technology evolving to stop these living off-the-land attacks?
Well, there's a couple of different aspects to it and a couple of different parts to it. So you have, on the one hand, the fact that new malware is being released into the world, into the wild, at an ever-increasing rate. I mean, the latest estimates are somewhere around 550, 560,000 new pieces of malware released every single day. Wow. So the question is, how do you possibly keep up with that? I mean, the short answer is you can't, which comes back to why default deny is so important. The other thing is, I've seen statistics of anywhere up to 40% of that 560,000 show signs of either being created by, augmented by, or iterated by AI. So if anything, AI is accelerating the pace. And look, AI is an accelerant in many ways, but it's equally an accelerant when it's in the hands of a bad actor as it is when it's in the hands of a defender. So that's one part or one aspect to it. And as I said, allow listing fundamentally solves that problem, because you don't need to recognize all of those 560,000 things as being bad. You just block everything, including those 560,000 things. But ring fencing is of particular interest in, I mean, for example, one of the big things that I believe is coming down the tracks for pretty much every business is agentic AI. The fact that people are going to want to run these agents on their machines. Now, there was a bit of furore about this some time ago with OpenClaw, insofar as we had a lot of customers panicking, going, are people running OpenClaw in our environments? And the short answer is no. If you're secured, it's just a program. It's not allowed to run unless you allowed it to run, in which case maybe it is. But for the most part, our customers had nothing to worry about with regards to OpenClaw. But where it's going to start getting really interesting is where people are going to want to run these things, but run them safely. Yeah. So I want to run Claude Code on my machine. I want to run CoWork on my machine because there are obvious tangible benefits to how I can do my job. But organizations want to know that they're able to run safely. And that's where ring fencing enters the equation, because ring fencing as a concept is about let this thing run, but for example, don't let it access my files, or don't let it access these parts of my files, or don't let it access the internet, the entire internet. Because these agentic AI tools, if you actually see one of them running, it's incredible to see. Like it's command prompt, it's calling PowerShell, it's calling Git, it's calling Bash. It's basically running whatever it feels it needs.
And it's asking for the keys to the kingdom.
For all intents and purposes, yeah. But the point is, I want them to be able to run on my machines. I want my users to be able to benefit from these. But I also want to know that it's not going to be able to access my finance share with my important financial information, or I don't want it to be able to reach out to the entire internet. And as I said, that's where ring fencing comes in, insofar as we can allow these things to run, but we can allow them to run safely.
How my last interview, they mentioned that how much Frankenstein AI and shadow AI they were finding when they audited organizations.
Well, see, this is the point. Like, our customers don't have to worry about that because they are things that need to run. Now, there is the other aspect to it and the other side to it, which is AI tools on the web, because, again, that's a huge concern or a huge problem. So, interestingly, we, as a company, we have a policy around AI tools, which is you don't use free ones. If you want one, effectively you can ask for it. But we actually published a university article basically explaining explicitly to people what's allowed, what's not allowed. We blocked certain things. We've got a web control product, so we're able to block access to certain websites. We're able to block, for example, Microsoft Copilot, the free one, but allow Copilot 365, which is the paid one, because we have Office 365. But the interesting thing is when we laid this out for people, when we actually made them all or asked them all to go through the training, the increase in people requesting ChatGPT accounts was like almost a vertical line. Yeah. So from nobody asking for one to everybody wanting one. And I mean, when I say everybody, maybe 40, 50 people, right, but in a very short period of time. So that can only lead me to believe that those 40 or 50 people were probably using free accounts before. Yes. And God knows what they were putting into it. So the fact of the matter is, because we put, and again, some of this is about controls and some of it's about procedure and training as well. So it was, behooves us to train people appropriately and let them know what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. But equally, because we have a tool like ThreatLocker, we can control exactly what they can and can't use and what they can and can't access.
Yeah. No, very interesting. And I think GovAI is the Australian government's attempt to do exactly this too. It's not that they want to be an ostrich or a laggard, but they do want to see that these tools are used responsibly and are monitored appropriately. Let's switch tack around the SOCI, Australia's SOCI Act. This has turned cybersecurity into a legal mandate for critical infrastructure. How does your platform simplify the heavy lifting of compliance reporting for regulated entities in the critical infrastructure?
So, I mean, first of all, we obviously what we've spoken about so far, so application control, etc., that gives you a pretty good picture of your environment in terms of what can run and what can't run. We introduced a new product towards the middle of last year, which is what we call DAC, or Defense Against Configurations, which is, and the genesis of it, or where it started, was we wanted a method of automatically checking ThreatLocker configurations within your environment, fundamentally to make sure that users hadn't done something with the platform that made them less secure. So, for example, I created a policy that allows anything to run from C users. That's a really bad idea because it means anything can run from C users, including ransomware or malware or anything, whatever the case may be. So we started with that, but what we discovered and realized pretty quickly was there was a lot of things that we could check for that weren't necessarily ThreatLocker configuration related. Right. So just general configuration or misconfiguration. So, port 3389 open or exposed to the internet, or, a certain type of encryption not being used, or SMBV1 being enabled on a server, for example. So it grew from those initial ThreatLocker related checks to now 217 checks that are done every single day on every machine that is running ThreatLocker. This is a free service we provide. There's no additional charge for it. Anybody who has ThreatLocker fundamentally gets this, but it reports back to a dashboard. So you've got sexy charts. You can see if you're getting better, if you're geting worse, if the problems are improving or not. We explain the misconfigurations, what they are, why they're a problem, why they're dangerous, and we also give people remediations or ways to fix them as well. Now, sometimes those ways to fix them are going to be ThreatLocker related, so it's going to be apply this policy. Yeah. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's going to be you need to go here, do this, change this Windows setting, whatever the case may be. But the other thing, and to go back to your initial question about frameworks, etc., and compliance, is we also map these configurations and misconfigurations against the various compliance frameworks. So, like say Essential 8 or the one you mentioned was SOCI. Yeah. So we will map against those frameworks and say, well, this adheres to it, this doesn't. This adheres to it, this doesn't. And again, we'll explain why it doesn't. Yeah. Referencing the specific parts of the specific frameworks.
Yeah. And so in that sense, it's not a sort of magic bullet, one-time fix. A customer is on a journey with ThreatLocker.
And yeah, absolutely. And an interesting part, one of the things that we've done with it is, I wouldn't go so far as to describe it as gamification, but we will give people an environment security score based on the results of DAC, of Defense Against Configurations. And say, for example, you start at 70%. Then on a daily basis or a weekly basis or whatever basis you want, you can make changes, you can apply some of the remedies that are suggested, and you'll see that score changing over time. So generally speaking, if you do the right things, it's going to get better. So for example, internally at ThreatLocker, and we've got a pretty clean environment, but internally at ThreatLocker, we started off, I think, somewhere around the 65 to 70% mark. We actually hired an internal security guy, and his sole task, role, responsibility was to improve that DAC score for our own environment. So we're now, I think, about 90%, which is the 100th percentile. So we're basically the best configured environment in terms of DAC score. But making that available, we actually have customers who are basically comparing their DAC scores. So mine is 75%, hard luck, mine is 80%, that kind of thing, which is quite interesting as well. We've actually, one of the things we're building into newer versions of the portal is we're letting people publish it. Okay. So post it to LinkedIn. Yeah. Our DAC score has gone from 70% to 90% in 3 months or whatever the case may be, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So a product roadmap.
Yeah.
What else can we look forward to from ThreatLocker?
Oh, that's so we are always looking for ways to improve what we do. Yeah. We have a development ticketing system that I think at any given time has somewhere in the region of about 1,000 tickets in it of things that we want to change, things that we want to do, things that we want to improve. I mean, fundamentally, there's no standing still. It's interesting insofar as the nature of what we do with Default Deny is that we don't really have to respond to every new threat. So just because a threat actor is using a new tactic or technique, we don't, generally speaking, have to respond to that specific tactic or technique because, again, we block everything. But that's not to say that we aren't constantly improving it, because there's always areas for improvement. I mean, that's one of the great things about events like this, is we get to sit and have conversations with customers. And the best feedback we get from customers is not that you guys are awesome, you help us sleep at night. It's I find this a little bit difficult to do. It's not intuitive. It's not as, it doesn't work as well as it might, or, I've got this particular machine, and whatever the case may be, it's harder than it needs to be. But getting that negative feedback is actually 10 times as valuable to us as getting positive feedback. Right. Because it means we can fix it, we can make it better for everyone. So that's, again, one of the reasons why events like RSA or RSAC are so valuable to us, because it is an opportunity to sit down, talk to, and listen to customers.
You talk about 1,000 tickets. That's quite a lot for a product manager. CPO to be like, okay, how do I
what's most important?
Yes. How many customers need to say the same thing before it elevates up that list?
Not that many. I mean, in some ways it depends on the customer. I mean, I've got small customers who are unbelievable sources of suggestions in terms of improvements to the product. I mean, I literally, every time I get an email from them, I literally read through it and I go, that makes perfect sense. I'll send it on to our business analyst team and I'll say, look, make this happen. Yeah. Because it's always perfectly sensible. Sometimes, I mean, it's not a fixed number. It's not a X number of customers need to ask for something before we do it. Generally speaking, we try and evaluate things on, look, is this going to improve the experience for everyone? Is this going to improve the product for everyone? If so, what's involved in doing it? Is it going to be a couple of days' work? Is it going to be a week's worth? Is it going to be a month's work? And then we try and evaluate based on that, prioritize, and try and get as much as possible as we can get done.
Yeah, I've always admired the role of the sort of product owners because they can speak tech and customer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that discipline also is important.
And to be honest, and we've got a VP of development as well, who is very much let's call him the dev whisperer. Yeah. I come at it more, even though my background is technical, I come at it more from the product should do this, or the product should behave in this way, or it should be able to do this, or it should not do that kind of aspect. So I'm not hands deep into the development part of it. That's something that our developers and our, as I said, VP of development will look after. But it works quite well insofar as I said, I look at it from a what's the best customer experience perspective. He looks at it from okay, these are the things that we need to do. How do we actually make it happen? What teams need to be involved? I mean, there was a time, so our CEO, Danny Jenkins, is very much involved in the day-to-day from a development perspective. There was a time when Danny pretty much knew every line of code because he basically wrote every line of code, and he's that kind of individual that he remembers where everything is. Now, it's very much developed beyond that stage now, but having his input from the technical side is incredibly valuable as well because he is fundamentally a developer. That's what he does. So we do also have, as well as myself and VP of Development, we do also have our CEO, Danny, who's very much hands-on in terms of what we need to do and how we need to make it happen.
On the human side, what does ThreatLocker look for in their new recruits?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I suppose it depends on the role is probably a good way to describe it. So, like, for example, in my own team, one of the things that, although it's business analysts / product managers. A lot of people will come with a lot of product experience, but they may not have any technical background. And that's something that we've found over time to be extremely important, that if you don't know how Windows operates under the hood, then designing a product that operates in Windows is somewhat challenging. So it very much depends on the department. So as I said, in our own team, something like a technical background is really important. Our sales guys, I mean, we've got sales guys that have come from every possible background you can imagine. Probably so before I was Chief Product Officer here in the US, I was VP of Operations in EMEA. And one of my proudest hires there was a young guy. I'll name drop him, he's probably never going to hear this, but Harvey. And Harvey we worked in a gym beforehand. He was a personal trainer in a gym. Right. So nothing jumped out that he was going to be an absolute rock star sales guy. But when it came to it, he's been with us now nearly as long as I have, 4.5 years, and he is an absolute rock star sales guy. So it very much depends on what part of the operation that you're hiring for. As I said, salespeople, if they can express themselves well, if they show an aptitude, if they're interested, and I mean, that's really half the battle, is believing in the thing that you're talking about. I mean, you can have a salesperson sprouting statistics or, things to prospects, and if they don't really believe in what they're saying, then people can smell that a mile away. Whereas if you genuinely, truly believe what you're doing or what you're talking about is the right thing to do, then that's fundamentally half the battle.
I agree. I'm not sure sales is going agentic.
I don't think so. Not soon, anyway. Yeah. But mind you, interestingly, our sales team are one of the ones who are one of the teams that use it the most, and they use it for really simple things like making their emails better.
Yeah,
dead simple.
Prospecting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So again, there's lots of value there, and I mean, I have absolutely no objection in somebody making their grammar better in sending an email out, because it's one thing that used to annoy me when people used to try to sell to me, and I'd get an email and the grammar wouldn't be quite right. I was like, that doesn't make sense. Just you know. So look, again, there's plenty of value in that. But yeah, well, back to your question, those who believe and are willing to work hard will do incredibly well.
Yeah. So Australia is your second largest market?
Yes. So Australia and the UK, it sort of occasionally will go UK, but then very often we'll go back to Australia. I did check yesterday in advance of our talking, and it is officially our second biggest market.
Is that because Harvey moved there?
No, interestingly enough though, Harvey actually did work with quite a lot of big customers in Australia.
Okay.
And I spoke to somebody about this last night. So some of our US reps will from time to time speak to Australians, get Australian accounts, but they've no interest in getting up in the middle of the night to do a call with an Australian customer. Now, obviously, we've got Australian staff now, so we don't need to worry about this. But before we had the office in Australia, it was pretty much up to our EMEA salespeople, those who were willing to stay up late at night or get up very early in the morning, one of which happened to be Harvey, who did really, really well in working with Australian customers.
Yeah, it's good. And how are you getting on with government, Australian government right now?
I don't know is the short answer. I mean, obviously, relationships like this very much help. But in terms of direct contact or working with the government themselves, it wouldn't really be my area of.
I'll go and find out. Yeah, right. Perhaps if I can ask you for a sort of final message to the listeners of Cyber Uncut from ThreatLocker.
I suppose I will say, if you are a customer, thank you. Yes. It's great to have you. If you're not a customer, look us up, ThreatLocker.com. We're on all the socials. We actually had quite a number of Australians at our event Zero Trust World in Florida a couple of weeks ago. We introduced a couple of new products. That was really exciting. So Zero Trust Network Access and Zero Trust Cloud Access. So even if you are a customer and you haven't heard about these things, look them up. So check out our website, check out our YouTube. We're basically everywhere now. You can't miss us. We're also advertising, I believe, billboards in quite a number of different places in Australia as well. So you may have seen us there. But yeah, as I said, if you're a customer, thank you so much for your business. We really appreciate it. If you're not a customer, consider what we do and have a conversation. We'd love to talk to you.
Well, thanks. Hopefully now they know more about ThreatLocker. Rob Allen, it has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
What a great guy Rob is. He is like his business partner, Danny Jenkins. They are just super passionate about what they do. And I really hope next year Cyber Daily can get along to the next RSA with Austrade and with Dan Marks, because he's done a lot of work with us on this. We have a series of interviews coming up with people who worked with him at the RSA Conference. So keep an eye out for that. But I think for now, we'll leave the good news there, because that was an interesting little chat.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's been that kind of week. I'm struggling to find the good news.
Yeah.
We have a cybersecurity partnership with Japan.
Oh yeah,
I'm going to call that good news.
That is good news.
That's good news. Yeah.
We do. We have that.
It was one of the things that came out of one of the panels I did at the summit last week, is that we need to remember that no organization, no country is alone when it comes to cybersecurity.
No.
There are ISACs out there to help you. There are events like the Cyber Summit where you can go along and meet people in your industry, make friends, because it's so important to do that in this sector. So I'm going to say goodbye for myself and my friend Dan.
Yep.
Not Dan Marks, so forget that confusion.
Dan me.
Dan him and David me.
Yep.
If you like what you've listened to, you can find both of us on Cyber Daily. You can track us down on social media, hopefully happily track us down, not negatively track us down. Yep. If you want to let us know you like what we're doing or have some polite critiques, track us down on socials.
We'll tell you why you're
articles. Wrong. We'll handle it. We're big people like that. Otherwise, we'll be back next week. Thank you again for